We are now ready to welcome founding partner Lars Jensen of Scale Capital. So it's a pleasure to have you here, Lars, and we are looking forward to get your perspectives on both Scale Capital, how you invest, but also some AI perspectives on how this will affect the SaaS sector. So Lars, please take it from here.
Great, thank you, and thank you for having me. So basically, I'm just going to present Scale Capital, what we do, who we are, why we invest in SaaS, B2B SaaS specifically, and at the end talk a little bit about how AI is changing the playing field in SaaS, and also discuss we do some mapping of AI companies just to bring some perspective in how the sector is growing and who is sort of leading the pack. So basically, Scale Capital is a Nordic venture fund. We started in 2012. We invest in digitization and disruptive technologies. And just to bring a little bit of perspective of how we started, it's only 14 years ago, 12 years ago, but it seems like ages ago in terms of how the whole funding landscape looked back then, also the SaaS market. So basically, there was not a lot of funding available for SaaS companies in Europe. A little more in Central Europe, in Germany and France and so on, but in the Nordics, very little. Silicon Valley was booming, and there was a big difference in terms of valuation between Nordic companies and Silicon Valley-based companies. And that's basically what my partner and I saw back in 2011, 2012. So we started investing our own money into these type of companies. And in 2013, I moved to Silicon Valley and basically spent 4 years in San Francisco and a year in New York, and helped accelerate the companies we invested in. So we continued investing, and I was sort of jumping from company to company, building revenue and building the teams. And that's how we got started, basically. Not as venture capitalists in the traditional sense, but we started a venture fund. We put in 16 million kroner of our own money, and we got 56 million in return, and decided to start building venture funds. Today we have an office. Main location is in Copenhagen, and then we have employees or people we work with in the Nordic countries and in Silicon Valley. We have the bulk of our investments in B2B SaaS, and I'll get back to exactly what that is. And about 30% of our investments are in deep tech, and I'll also get back to what that is a little bit more. We only invest in companies that view the US market as the main market for their product. And I will let you know in 2 seconds why that is. We typically invest 1 to 3 million euros initially. We can deploy up to 6 million euros into the individual companies. But we start by taking an ownership stake between 10 and 20%. So again, this is venture capital. We are minority investors. We're not a private equity fund that buys the whole company. Our team is basically, as I mentioned, we have people in the regions, and then we have people based in Copenhagen that are deal sourcing. We have 3 or 4 people only focusing on deal sourcing. We look at about 1,500 cases a year, and we do between 3 to 5 investments. So in terms of the US strategy, so our focus, and this has been from the very beginning, was to find the best early stage technology companies in the Nordics that have good engineering, a lot of technology content, and that see the US as their biggest market, investing them at lower valuations typically than the US, and then help them scale in the North American market. We try to invest at the inflection point, so basically right when the company is taking off commercially. It doesn't always succeed and happen that way, but that's our intention every time. And then we try to bring them up to the solid curve here, that is larger or higher growth and larger valuation. And that's, at least for our fund, has been a kicker in terms of returns over the year, that we basically have seen that this strategy of transplanting companies into the US market has really boosted our returns. And talking about returns, we have delivered 32% IRR net for the past 12 years. This has been driven by 9 exits over the time period, and across of the 3 funds. We're currently investing out of a 400 million Danish kroner fund, 54 million euros, and we've done 9 investments in that fund so far. So this is our current portfolio on the left-hand side. We've done 9 investments in the new fund that we closed in July last year. We've done 9 investments so far, and we've done, as I said, 9 exits. The largest so far being Cylendo, which I will speak to in a moment. So I brought 3 cases basically to give you a sense of what is a B2B SaaS company. You obviously heard from some B2B SaaS companies today, but it's basically companies doing business with companies. So this is not a consumer play. This is not medtech. This is not biotech. This is basically often software products that are sold to companies. And we specifically focus on the enterprise segment. So companies that develop software for large companies globally. The first example here is a Finnish company called Meeting Package. They deliver software to hotel chains that help them with their event booking. So events at hotels, meeting rooms in hotels, and so on. Everything that has not to do with the rooms in the hotel. So the ordinary bookings. I would say this is we call it a Rugbrøds case. It's not cutting edge technology. This is just a very, very good commercial business. They are bridging old technology with new technology, with smarter software products. This is a rocket case for us. We invested in November last year. The company had 2.2 million euro ARR, and we expect them to come in around 7 to 8 million ARR this year. So this has really developed tremendously well. There's some shifts in the space that brings this particular Finnish company in the center of this shift in the market. They have 70 employees, and we led the last funding round in November. Then we have a company called 7 Analytics. This is for us only a few months old investment. The company is, I think, 2.5 years old, so also a young company. But they basically use AI and big climate models to predict the next natural disaster. So what they do is they help asset owners, critical infrastructure owners, with predicting how rainfall, mudslides, so basically things that can affect their assets. They predict that. That's the product they sell to asset owners. Then they have a different product that they sell to insurance companies that can basically help them calculate their insurance premiums correctly. So today we talk a lot about climate change. The founders of this company, they talk a lot about how urban areas have changed. So basically where it used to be fields and grass, it's now concrete. and that is actually causing a lot of the flooding that we see in our cities and urban areas today. Climate change certainly obviously affected, but it's really also the different landscaping of our cities that are causing these issues. So this company is quite early. They're just around 1 million euro ARR. They're setting up the Boston office after the summer. We just registered the company for them, and it's really the US market that is interesting for them. It's the biggest insurance market in the world, and there's a lot of ground to cover. The last case is basically an exit case for us. So it's a company we invested in 2015. They do virtualization of furniture. So they basically help brands and e-tailers with showing furniture in a better way, so that you can see the furniture online before you make the buying decision. So with a lot of these investments, whether investors want to acknowledge it or not, it's a lot about timing. And for this company, the timing, the moment of truth for them was COVID, because that's basically where all the furniture stores across the world shut down for a shorter or longer period of time. And the furniture brands didn't really have good visualization for selling online. So all of a sudden, this company went from I would say 30 to 100 in 18 months. They had great technology, but they were really struggling with finding market traction because of an old industry not wanting to digitize. So that all happened in 18 months, and the company was sold in March 22 for 840 million kroner. And we were the lead investor, fortunately. So this has paid back most of our fund too. And then we have 9 companies left in that fund. But just an example of where timing is everything. This was at the height of the market in 2022. And COVID just made this company very successful. We had 12 bidders, all PE and growth funds, and we sold the company to TA Associates in New York. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what is B2B SaaS, and I can give you my perspective on why I think it's a good industry to focus on. So first of all, it's as you also heard from Maps people and others today, it's a subscription-based model. So we're talking ARR, and these models are creates a predictable revenue and a very stable business that you can predict. There are a lot of metrics that we look at as investors. The net retention rate is one of them. So how well does the company retain customers, but also how well are they building on existing revenue and expanding that per customer. Then obviously these companies are often better at innovating than large companies, and that's why they have a role to play. So we are looking for the innovative companies that are filling the gaps of new technology for old business models or old sectors that are not yet digitized. And then there's the exit opportunities, and why we invest in B2B SaaS and not in consumer, for instance, is that it's we see that in the B2B space there's a lot of opportunity for selling to industry. So basically, to be swallowed up by a large corporation that can't do the innovation themselves, but that basically goes in and grabs a company like that. to implement the technology in their own systems, or prevent competitors for having this technology. So often valuations are higher because buyers are willing to pay a premium for this type of innovation and revenue. Then in the enterprise space, there's a high revenue potential, and that's basically, I mentioned before, Seven Analytics in Norway. Some of the deals that they've been closing in the first 9 months of commercializing has been 150 to 200k euro deals. This is quite high, and you can then acquire revenue quite fast if you have that type of deal source or deal size. Also for software products, when we're talking B2B SaaS, they can basically often be scaled globally. Obviously, you need to reach the customers. There's a sales effort, marketing effort, and so on. But these products can often be sold in in Toronto and Dubai and Paris, because the needs are often similar. And then there's risk mitigation, and that's basically why we are in B2B SaaS. We see that as a more stable market. There will always be businesses looking for new technology and new innovation. It's not as fickle as consumer. If you invest in an app and it fails in terms of attracting users, then there's nothing to sell. And that's why we like the B2B space, because often if the commercial model fails, then you can sell the company basically to somebody who can use the technology. So if we're talking AI in SaaS, it's quite interesting, because if we look at Gartner's hype cycle, you often see technologies that are sort of reaching the height of the hype cycle in 3 to 5 years. With AI, it basically happened in 12 to 18 months. When you look at SaaS, it has been a very long sort of hype cycle. I know it's a very broad area, but if you look at, say, 3D printing, this was hyped 15 years ago. Took a long time to reach the peak, and now it's sort of coming back up the curve. It's been going down and coming back up. AI is sort of peaking right now. The interesting part about this is how it's going to affect the SaaS market. So we are very aware when we invest today in the sort of application space. We're not big enough to invest in the infrastructure layer. And I'll show you a map of that a little later. But basically, when you consider the application layer, that's basically where companies build the products that consumers use and businesses use. Is really, really hard to predict how the LLMs, the large language models, are going to affect other companies in the SaaS market. Because they might build functionality tomorrow that a company is trying to build today. So for us as a venture fund, as an investor, it's really hard to predict which services being developed today are going to be obsolete tomorrow, because it's just part of the offering of the LLMs. So looking at the different markets within technology over time. We've had the cloud revolution with a lot of applications and companies building $1 billion companies within this space. Zoom is a good example of building a $1 billion company during COVID. But you have all the others, well-known companies that most of them are listed, and most of them, I'm sure, some of you have invested in or invested in. So the billion-dollar question is, who are going to be the next billion-dollar revenue companies in the AI space? Obviously, we have OpenAI building ChatGPT. This could be a very major player. We have on the infrastructure side, AWS, Amazon is for sure going to play a big role. And the big winner right now is of course NVIDIA, because they are building the underlying infrastructure. I think, if I remember correctly, last year there was about $16 or $17 billion being spent on AI infrastructure, and I think there was $2 billion in revenue being made. So we're talking major investments into the future. But if we look sort of down the list, so you obviously have the applications, you have the developer layer, no clear leader yet. I have a few, we are tracking a few companies that potentially could be developer tools for the future. The data layer, also no clear leader. We see AWS and other companies, they're building in AI technology to also the data layer. And then we have the security layer. So how is AI going to impact security of data, of communication, of personal AIs? How are we going to protect individuals using personal AIs, assistants, and so on? And then the infrastructure layer. So we have only scratched the surface, and if we had a crystal ball, who are the winners? Who are the big companies being built in this space? And I predict that they are going to be built very, very fast compared to some of the players that have taken 15 years to grow big in some of the other areas. Here are just some numbers on users and on ARR, and you actually see that in the consumer space, obviously ChatGPT is massive. They don't really have they have a business model, but still not a lot of paying users. I think they just reached, I can't really remember how much revenue they have, but they are obviously growing very, very quickly. Midjourney seems to have found a business model, and they are acquiring users and revenue very, very quickly. Midjourney is basically when you can do video graphics and so on using AI. Then you have the infrastructure layer, or the enterprise layer, with GitHub having a co-pilot like we see in Microsoft. We have Harvey, which is basically a developer tool for the law space, and a piece of software for the law space. Still, I don't think they're commercializing, but they're also growing users very fast. Glean is basically an enterprise AI for the B2B space, also finding business models and growing quite quickly. And then we have the incumbents, obviously. Some of the companies I would say are at the forefront of using AI, building AI into their product. It's Microsoft, it's ServiceNow, it's Instacart, and those big players. And I would say if they don't do it, they will be circumvented by players that will use AI. Last slide here, just so we're tracking this on a quarterly basis, basically looking at the infrastructure layer. What are the players? Some people have heard the names Mistral and OpenAI and these Anthropic and so on, but there are a lot of companies competing in this space, building LLMs for certain verticals. And then you have the application layer, and that's where we as venture funds and investors should be very careful, because these guys can really disrupt the existing SaaS companies. So can the infrastructure layer, but the application layer is also a good contenders for that. So many see NVIDIA as a infrastructure company, which they are obviously, because they're building the chips, GPUs that power the compute. But they're actually also a big investor into many of the names here. So they invested into Mistral, the French LLM. They're invested into Inflection and other companies. Microsoft is also investing into Mistral and other LLMs beside OpenAI. And we see that repeating. Google is investing into Anthropic. Amazon just invested $2.4 billion into Anthropic, which has Claude as the assistant. So this is just one big sort of mishmash of venture and growth investors and the big incumbents trying to maybe not get control of these LLMs, but at least be part of it, because you don't know who the winners are going to be. I think I'll leave it here and then open up for questions.
Yes, thank you, Lars, and very exciting. We have both Michael and I have some questions, but we also have some from the audience, so of course we should start with them. First, Lars, have you personally invested your money in any listed AI software companies?
I'm actually not investing money in the public market.
No, fine.
Because I get a better returns of investing in the fund.
I think that's the right answer also for you sitting at Scale Capital, so of course that's fine. Then another here is saying, great presentation, thanks. If then, when will the AI agenda, very energy and water consuming, and the green agenda eventually clash? So do you see any?
I'm asking myself the same question. I think there was really an outcry with crypto, how much energy that consumes. Nobody is really talking about AI and what that means. I saw that, I think it was Apple that just, they can't find enough green energy, so they had to sort of go back on their goals for being carbon neutral in 25 or whenever they said they would. That's not gonna happen. And I think for a lot of the other companies, this is really a problem. We don't have green energy enough to to all be green.
Yeah, I can see my nuclear company in US. I never really understood why it went up 4x, but now the claim about energy and to the data center starts to make sense. To start with, how do you determine whether it's a fake AI claim or a real AI company when you look into, you might invest into an AI company? I think that's some of maybe the hardest thing for investors outside. Do you have any, I know you say you go deep into it, but any thoughts about maybe how we are on the outside as investors, not going so deep in as you might be able to spot anything?
I think for our point of view, and because we are in quite early and we do the technical due diligence with people who actually knows this stuff, they can see if the algorithms are being used and how they're being used and how they're using the large language models and so on. So I think we have a pretty good view when we invest if they are actually using these technologies. I think for outsiders and also investing into bigger companies, it's really hard. And it's really hard to see how much revenue are derived from their current business models and, just from their current algorithms, and how much is coming from the sort of the new AI. So it's,
I know
it's really hard to assess.
But you talk about it if they use like LLMs and those kind of models, as a core part of their technology, that could be a sign that this is actually not a false claim AI company? Is that, if we should take it as the easiest way, just looking a little bit from the outside and not going deep in, could that be one of the things we really should look out for?
I think we should look at what use cases they are building for. I think that's the best sort of metric, and I think the incumbents, if they succeed building in this technology into their value proposition, I mean, those are the ones I would bet on, to be honest, because I would wait for the Anthropics and so on to obviously get listed so you can invest, but also see that they actually have viable business models.
And that's actually also running back to it, I guess you also read all these reports that is now coming out that AI kills software, I think like Mark Twain said, that's probably a little bit over-exaggerated about your debt, because software, as you say, it's use cases, right? It's customers, it's making something simple and saving cost or giving a good return on investment, whereas AI, I understand why everybody is afraid of what it can do, but everybody is scrambling to get a use case out of AI, right? Getting it into the company, combining it with data, there's a big, I think, conference in UK right now, and they can mention contact centers, back office, and writing code, and checking code. But besides that, there really isn't any use cases. So don't you think that you should, of course, watch out for it, be afraid of it, but that AI kills software companies is a little bit exaggerated? Any thoughts about that?
It's certainly on the B2B space. I don't think that's going to be true for many, many years. I mean, even a simple, and they shouldn't hear me say that because it's pretty complicated stuff, but the meeting package company in Finland doing the hotel event software, I mean, they are so connected into different systems, and you can't just ask an AI to just do that. It's not going to happen. So, and just the security implications alone, and so no, it's not gonna kill all software.
And I think you touched upon it, the simplicity, right, of software, right? That is also some of it. But yeah, nice to hear your thoughts about it.
Yes.
I also think if you look at the 3D printing 15 years ago, that was the first hype cycle. I remember, I'm old enough to remember that everybody was saying, oh, it's going to kill manufacturing and it's all going to be localized and it's going to cut costs and it did nothing for at least 10 years. Until the technology was mature enough to actually make a difference in production.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be very exciting to see what the future will bring with AI. So, but at least Lars, for now, thank you very, very much for the presentation and giving us these very insightful perspectives on AI. So again, thank you, and also for answering all the questions.
You're welcome. Thank you.